No more testing, no more practice. This is the real deal, and it's make or break here at Albert Park, home of the Australian Grand Prix since 1996, and home to round one of this year's Formula One World Championship. We're a stone's throw from the enormous Port Phillip Bay for today's race at the 3.28-mile Albert Park circuit. It's a bumpy racing surface here, and the 14 corners could prove especially difficult in the wet conditions. So watch out for a safety car at some point during this Grand Prix. So with the race not far away from starting, here's what today's grid rundown looks like. Oscar Piastri lines up on pole position, edging out Lando Norris, who'll start from P2. Considering the rest of the grid, we have Russell, Verstappen, and Sir Lewis Hamilton, and Leclerc, Tsunoda, Antonelli, Fernando Alonso, and Isaac Hadjar, Sainz, Stroll, Liam Lawson, and Albon, Hülkenberg, Gasly, Ollie Behrman, and Jack Doohan. Ocon and Gabriel Bortoleto rounds off the grid. And with lights out just moments away, it's time to go down to the track. And alongside me, bringing glamour and expertise to our commentary today, Naomi Schiff. So here we are then at Albert Park. It's a street track. Well, it's not, it's a park track. People go for a nice Sunday afternoon stroll, but not this weekend.
Well, what a wonderful location. And today the challenge for them is going to be that this is a street circuit. So the probability of safety cars are quite high. There is a little bit of room for risk, but not much. So stay out of trouble.
Radio check, please. Radio check.
Radio check.
Great work. That's a new fastest lap of the race. Okay, mate, this is the final lap of the race. Final lap. Absolutely awesome. Just amazing, mate. Well done.
Mega job, guys. What an amazing result. Thank you so much. So proud of you all. Let's keep pushing. Let's keep pushing.
And extending his already record-breaking winning record, it's Lewis Hamilton to the line for victory.
Thank you.
It's not every day that we get to see such incredible wheel-to-wheel racing. Next time, they might consider making it easier for themselves, but today, we absolutely loved all the action that we got to see out there.
What a day it's been for Formula One, and what a day it's been for these three drivers. Time for the podium celebrations. Time for our drivers to celebrate. And back on the top spots that he's taken so often in the past. So well done to Lewis Hamilton. Well, what an end to another fantastic weekend of racing. Thanks to everyone who joined us, and we'll see you for the next one. Welcome along, everyone, to the Circuit Gilles Villeneuve. Canada's a country with a proud F1 heritage and a top-class circuit too. It's time for the Canadian Grand Prix. We'll be seeing top speeds of around 210 miles per hour here at the Circuit Gilles Villeneuve, with around two-thirds of the lap taken at full throttle. High-speed chicanes spell potential danger, especially at the infamous Wall of Champions, and watch out for overtaking into the hairpin and that final chicane. Let's run you through the driver grid order for today's exciting race. Oscar Piastri lines up on pole position, and Max Verstappen lines up alongside. Looking down the rest of the grid, we have Norris, Russell, Yuki Tsunoda, and Hamilton, Leclerc, Antonelli, Fernando Alonso, and Liam Lawson, Albon, Hadjar, Carlos Sainz, and Stroll, Doohan, Ocon, Nico Hülkenberg, and Pierre Gasly. Behrman and Gabriel Bortoleto rounds off the grid. Which of these talented drivers will come out on top today? And joining me in the commentary box today with the best view on what is about to unfold and some strong views on the action we're about to see, Naomi Schiff. Oh, Canada. Oh, Canada. What a track this is, and what a challenge for the drivers this weekend. Long straights, heavy braking zones, and a very green surface to start with.
This happens to be one of the drivers' favourites. It is a low downforce circuit that is fast and flowing, but it is also demanding on the brakes. And be careful, because let's not forget the Wall of Champions that catches out so many.
Okay, radio check, radio check.
Radio check.
DRS now enabled, DRS enabled. Good job. That was the fastest lap of the race so far. That was the fastest lap of the race. Keep this up. Well done.
Great job, guys. Great job.
And as we've said so many times in the past, the checkered flag is out for our winner, Lewis Hamilton.
Well, that's 2 wins in a row for them now. That's really going to help them gain confidence and start to build that momentum that they're really going to be looking for.
Well, I don't know about you, but I've absolutely loved watching that action today, and I'm sure these 3 have loved taking part. Here come our podium finishers. It's a familiar sight in Formula One, and here it is once again, Lewis Hamilton with the trophy held high, celebrating a masterful victory. And with that, we wrap up another weekend of motorsport action. But with more races lined up, be sure to join us when we come back with more Formula One. Welcome to Abu Dhabi. We're just about to start today's race here at the Yas Marina circuit. It's a track known for its long back straight, which serves as a fantastic opportunity for overtaking, going into the slow speed corners that follow it. We have 16 corners here at Yas Marina circuit, 7 to the right and 9 to the left. It's a total lap distance of 3.28 miles, 2 long straights and overtaking opportunities throughout the lap. And we expect average speeds of around 123 miles per hour. So with the race not far away from starting, here's what today's grid rundown looks like. George Russell will begin today's event in pole position, and Oscar Piastri completes the front row. Moving on to the rest of the grid, we have Norris, Hamilton, Charles Leclerc and Verstappen, Tsunoda, Antonelli, Sainz and Fernando Alonso, Stroll, Lawson, Alex Albon and Hadjar, Hülkenberg, Doohan, Esteban Ocon and Gabriel Bortoleto. Gasly and Ollie Behrman rounds off the grid. It's almost time for those 5 red lights to go out then. Let's see who can prevail today. And alongside me today, a man who I'm always pleased to see join me in the commentary box, Anthony Davidson. Look, we know it's not where you start, it's where you finish. But let's talk about the start now. What's there to help the drivers get away well?
Big pressure at the start of the race, Crofty, for all of them up and down the grid, no matter where you are. But the drivers these days, they practice and practice. They have rigs with them at the circuit where they can sit down with the actual steering wheel from the real car, and they've got lights that they react to. The clutch paddle is tailored around the driver's hands, around their fingers, so they can have optimum position before they start. So there's so much thought and effort that goes into getting these cars off the line.
Okay, let's have a comms check, please. Radio check.
Radio check.
Can now use DRS. DRS now available. Great work. That's a new fastest lap of the race. Okay, you've just started the final lap of the race. Final lap.
So grateful for all of you, for all the work back in the factory. And here, thanks so much for not giving up on me.
Good job. And Lewis Hamilton takes the checker flag and once again wins.
And of course, what 3 race victories, a hat-trick of wins, does for a driver's confidence is huge going forward in the championship. You know, they've got the energy on their side now, and it's for the others to try and stop this progression of victories.
Well, it's been a long wait for many of our drivers, but the wait is always worth it. Bring them out to the awaiting crowd. It's time for our podium celebrations. And back on the top spots that he's taken so often in the past. So well done to Lewis Hamilton. Well, that was certainly an exciting weekend of Formula One. Be sure to join us for more exciting Formula One action very soon. Welcome to Las Vegas, and for Formula One, it's welcome back to Las Vegas. No longer do we race in the Caesars Palace car park. Tonight, the time is right to go racing in the street. 17 corners, 3 straights, 2 DRS zones, and the glitz and glamour of Las Vegas as we race around the 3.8 miles of Sin City. The strip has been taken over to become a straight tonight, commanding top speeds of around 212 miles an hour. Let's run you through the driver grid order for today's exciting race. An immense lap from Lewis Hamilton yesterday puts him on pole position, and Lando Norris lines up alongside. Looking at the rest of today's grid, we have Verstappen, Piastri, Charles Leclerc and Tsunoda, Russell, Antonelli, Fernando Alonso and Isaac Hadjar, Lawson, Albon, Carlos Sainz and Stroll, Behrman, Gasly, Esteban Ocon and Gabriel Bortoleto. Hulkenberg and Jack Doohan rounds off the grid. It's almost time for the lights to go out, so let's head down to the track where preparations are underway. And alongside me here today in the commentary box, Anthony Davidson. Quitting while you're ahead, not spending too much on the slot machines and trying to get some decent sleep. That's my main 3 challenges here in Las Vegas, but what about the drivers?
Yeah, speaking about the on-track challenges, Crofty, enough about you and your challenge over the weekend. This track, you're on Monza downforce, don't forget. So every corner that comes your way, you've got way less grip than you're accustomed to in a Formula One car. So you've got to tread carefully, particularly around the higher speed content on the circuits.
Okay, radio check, radio check.
Radio check.
Okay, DRS is now available. Good job, that was the fastest lap of the race so far. Okay, this is your final lap of the race.
was hard work.
And extending his already record-breaking winning record, it's Lewis Hamilton to the line for victory. From lights out to the checkered flag, each and every driver has this moment in the back of their mind. Now it's time for their celebrations. Our podium, it awaits. It's a familiar sight in Formula One, and here it is once again. Lewis Hamilton with the trophy held high, celebrating a masterful victory. After an event like that, who knows what the sport has in store for us next time out? Be sure to join us once again as we continue to bring you all the excitement of Formula One.